Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and today we are going to have a look at the brand new Microsoft Flight Simulator Sim Update number 15 in the beta. There's a couple of exciting things coming with this one, so let's dive right into it. First of all, we are going to have a quick look at some of the points I regard the most important in the changelog, and then we're going to have a look at how they implemented some of those in a flight with the VL3 microlight. Something that I really liked when the sim came out first, but where I did not really like the flight instruments, but those have seen an overhaul, that much I can say already. So just a quick look into the changelog as you can see it over here. So general bug fixes, got a couple exciting things here regarding improved performance, improved FPS particularly when the FPS was low, reduced stutters particularly after long gameplay, and reduced loading times. Now the reduced loading times, I did not really see them myself yet. The thing does take pretty long to load still, and I don't think I did notice any change, but maybe there is, maybe there isn't. Okay, so then we go down. In terms of the weather, they put an interesting one there. They moved the threshold where water would ice up, so that they limit the amount of wrongly frozen water in the world, for example the Swiss lakes or Norwegian fjords. That was one that I saw in the comments below my videos for quite a bit. Now going down to the glass cockpits, this is where things get really interesting. So G3000, 5000 saw a couple bug fixes, but this is the important thing over here. The Garmin G3X touch unit received a comprehensive visual overhaul for the avionics for accurate font symbology, look, operation and feel. They've also built in Direct 2 and point-to-point VFR flight planning and navigation capability, support for IFR navigation when paired with compatible external navigators such as the working title GNS, and support for aircraft-specific EAS and MFD engine pay layouts, including optional lean assist and fuel calculation functions. So that is the important thing from this update for myself personally here, the Garmin G3X Touch. Now apart from that, the G1000 also saw a couple updates, so did the GNS 430 and the working title 21 line. Now a couple of general updates over here to all kinds of aircraft. Now the SR22 also received a couple interesting ones that I will have a look at. Most importantly, the side stick is now going to move or change its default position in order to reflect the applied elevator trim. And then we saw the G3X integrated into a couple of aircraft, amongst others, the VL3 that we are going to fly today. So that's the first beta version of the Sim Update 15 that we've just received. Since I know people will be asking, no, the Inibuild A320neo has not been included in that one yet. But do think back to the Sim Update 14 beta where it was first previewed. We only received it with the second beta, I believe, and not with the first one. I do assume, and that's just a personal assumption, that they do want to fix the, or that they do want to get a first impression on the general stability before giving people a new aircraft, which might cause an instability as well, so that they can make it a little bit easier to work on analyzing the stability of the entire product. But that's just a personal assumption. I don't have any data to back any of that up, but it would kind of seem logical. Alright, so then let's have a quick look as well into what we can expect from the real G3X units. Now this one we can see on the retailer page on Garmin's own website, so it can be yours for just 5,000 bucks. Alright, the reason I'm showing you this page, however, is that we want to have a look at all the different features that we can see on the unit over there, so that we can hopefully get an idea of what to expect from the unit. And then in a few moments we're going to fire it up in the simulator, and then we are going to have a look at what is actually there. So remember all these lovely things here, en route charts, lots of display options like making it a big navigation map. You've got weather overlay obviously, then you got quite a couple of touch control knobs in there. You can do Direct 2s, and you've got the digital air data system. Alright, so moving further down, we should also be able to change the layout of the display quite a bit, as you can see. Now, those insets here seem really useful on a large display like this, and, well, I personally kinda don't like the display of analog gauges, but let's be honest here, some of the more analog fans will surely like it. What's also worth noting over here is that you've got that highway in the sky feature, where it basically shows you the route that you're supposed to fly through in terms of these symbols over here. Alright, so you can also split it and stuff like that. Alright, the small unit doesn't really count for us. What's interesting down here as well is the engine indication system, where you can get an idea of what that looks like, and we are going to have a look into that in a few moments. Alright, so that is basically how the real world gauge looks, and now I suggest we're going to head straight over into the sim. By the way, do note the capability to display IFR charts over here. So now let's move right on into the simulator, where we are going to see how the simulated one looks. And here it is, our VL3, so let's hop straight into the cockpit. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any good manuals for this one, so we'll just have to improvise a little bit on the operating procedures over here. So if they are entirely wrong, please don't blame me for it. Right, master switch on. We do take a fuel pump, we do take a strobe light, the power lever is in idle, and the fuel is on. Alright, excellent. Let's see if we can get this started. Yes, we can. Alright, the warnings are out. Then I do suppose we can turn on the avionics switch over here. And here we go. The G3X is powering up. Let's see what that looks like. Working title version 0.3. Alright, that's the current nav data from the sim. Caution advisory only, data link weather information is subject to service interruptions, may contain errors or inaccuracies, and should not be relied upon exclusively or urged to check alternate weather information sources prior to making safety-related decisions. Alright, thank you very much. That's basically the same as when you fire up your car navigator Garmin telling you like, yeah, the rules of the road, the traffic code always takes precedence. Alright, happy with that. So, I do have to say I did play around a little bit with many of those features earlier, but let's go and have a look into what we can do. So, got a couple buttons down here and a couple of bed cells. Now, this one over here by default is set to the inner knob, handling your heading bug. Then you've got the outer one handling your altitude bug in steps of hundreds. I did not find any way to do this in steps of thousands, but honestly, this is not exactly a unit designed for long-range IFR navigation, if you know what I mean. Alright, next to that we got the nearest airport key, and that brings up the nearest airport menu, where basically, as you can see, well, you got the nearest airport on there. Surprise, surprise. Right, then let's get rid of that. Next up we've got the Direct 2 key. Obviously this will work a little bit better when we have a flight plan programmed, so that's what we're going to do in a few moments. Now next up then we got the menu key, and this one is obviously going to change whichever menu is going to come up depending on what we are showing at the time. So if we just go completely back, now we're on the primary flight display. If we now go to menu, then this is what we get, and you can see that we can do quite a couple changes here. For example, we can do the map inset, we can do the traffic inset, for example. And if we now go back to the main menu, then this is what we get. So as you can see, we can already work on quite a bit of those features that we had in the that we saw on the adverts of the real world unit. Right, so that's just a couple that I want to bring up here. Flight plan source, obviously you can choose between a flight plan created in the unit or a flight plan that's been created, for example, with the GNS 430 that you might also have fitted in the aircraft. Do note the flight plan functions in here are only legal to be used with VFR flights. They are not approved for IFR navigation. Alright, so that's just a general look here. If you use the back key while there is nothing displayed, then you can split the display and you're going to get the 2D nav map on. Now, if we already got the nav map open, then you can see that over here we got the zoom on the inner display. Or if we just go all the way in, then by the way we can see we don't have a safe taxi feature in here, but that's kind of expected. Alright, and if you use the larger key, you can switch between all the different pages you got available in here. In terms of flight plan, we are going to deal with that in a few moments. but first thing over here, the engine page, as you can see, that's what it looks like. And then fuel calculation. Well, this is the fuel page. We're going to talk about that in a couple more moments. Alright, so that's general overview of the features we got available here. If we hit back again, you can see we are brought out of the split screen view. We can also enter the split screen manually up here. And if we just do that for a second and then go to menu on the map, then obviously we got the map set up over here. But there's quite a couple of additional pages, so if we hit menu again, then we are really brought into the main menu. Over here you can see what pages and functions are available and which are not. As you can see, if we scroll through this, things like, for example, VNAV are not available in here. Go a little bit further down, we got a setup, so in here we can do the typical stuff like changing the data bar, changing displays, changing units. This one might be especially interesting here, because in here you can change between hectopascals and inches. And you can also change the weights around in here, which will prove rather useful. Likewise, you can do changes to the map over here, where you can do, as you can see, loads of different things. Now, what I personally do like is to go to the PFD over here, and you can see PFD presentation. This is where you could change it to the analog style instruments. That one is grayed out. That's not simulated at the moment, unfortunately. Personally, what I do like in here is the synthetic vision, so you can turn that on and off. And I have to say, personally, I'm not really too much of a fan for synthetic vision, but I do suppose that flight simmers do like it a lot, so for that sake, let's just put it on over here. Alright, so that's pretty much what you can do in those settings. It is definitely worth playing with to find what you prefer. Alright, so that's pretty much the primary flight display unit. Now we also got an ND over here in this particular plane. Now that's not available in all planes. For example, if you fly the Piper Cup, then you only have a single display. But as you can see, the plane can do pretty much everything you need on a single display as well. Alright, to suppose we do head over to the nav display. As you can see, this one is basically just a bigger nav display. But in here, likewise, you can do a lot of things here, like play with your settings, but most importantly, when you go into the split screen, you can also get a primary flight display over here, which does prove rather useful. Now, a funny little bug that I found that is going to work in both of these units. Let me just try and find that again. Setup. PFDs that here? Nah, not really. This thing got so many different options. You can see I'm struggling a little bit to find all of these myself. Let's do split screen. Menu. Well, honestly, I can't seem to be able to find it anymore. In any case, there used to be a little bug there where you got the menu where you can decide if you want the PFD to be shown on the left or the right hand side, and the things are inverted, so when you select left side, the PFD moves over to the right and the other way around. You can do that somewhere in this entire thing, but honestly gotta tell you, I can't find it right now, but it's probably for the better of it. Alright, in any case, with all of that done, I would say let's just head over here. So you can split this again. Okay, flight plan setup. We can do this on both sides, so for the ease of it, let's go ahead and do it on the left one. So flight plan, we're going to depart Echo Delta Lima Echo today. It's just going to be a local flight around the Ruhr area. So our next waypoint is going to be Echo Delta Lima Delta, Dienstlaken, and then we're going to fly back via Düsseldorf towards oopsie. And then we're going to fly back to Essen. So just a quick tour of the area so that we can see the instrument in action over here. But this is what the basic setup looks like there. Plan fuel consumption, plan speed, all of that looking good. Alright, total 41 nautical miles, so it should be a quick 20-minute flight. Alright, excellent. So let's just quickly run over to the engine page over here and go to the fuel calculation page. So we got to change that fuel remaining. And we are going to add, well, this is in gallons, interestingly enough. Really not sure why, but let's just say we want to add 20 gallons to it. Then we now have 133 pounds in here. Now, it is worth noting, this is all dependent on what you enter in the gauge. This is not an actual fuel quantity indicator. For an actual fuel quantity indicator, you're going to be searching for quite a while in this airplane, and I can tell you, you will not really find one. Well, you do have one down here, but this doesn't tell you any actual numbers. It just tells you the relative state, so it's like 50%. So you can obviously always go into the weight and balance page here. Now see, okay, we've got 30 kilograms of fuel, and 30 kilograms is roughly 60 pounds. So just go down here and remove fuel. I do believe we added 20, so let's remove 10 gallons. Yeah, maybe just remove another gallon or so. Alright, 60 pounds, that seems to look roughly right. Fuel use reset, and here we go. That's pretty much the entire information that we need. Alright, so that is pretty much how you got to do that setup. And with that, I'd say we can literally move right back into the nav map. Or we could just go out of the split screen view, because, well, we do have a nav display over here as well, don't we? Alright, so that's pretty much our setup. So let's just see if we can get this back to the map. Here we go. And that's it. So that stuff is now done. Couple last things here. You can see you've got the COM up here where you can change the frequencies. Let's say 122.8 and hit transfer. Alright, that's 122.8 active. Then on the navs, I just want some VOR. Let's say Düsseldorf VOR. Transfer active, thank you. I want to transmit on COM 1, listen to COM 1 and 2, and the audio control panel here is really just the same and a little bit bigger. Alright, so that's pretty much our setup. So then, let's go ahead and start preparing our airplane for the flight that we do want to do today. So the flaps, unfortunately automatic control isn't available in here. So I do suggest we're just going to use the first steps of flaps here. Landing gear lever is down. The COM we have already set up. Yeah, transponder, that's a good point to talk about still. So you do have a transponder in this aircraft. Obviously you could just use the one over here, but just gotta find that again. Here we go. In the main menu you've also got the transponder menu, and in here you can change your squawk and change the mode of the transponder and stuff like that. Alright. So that's the updated G3X. Now let's have a look into how that thing is going to look in flight. So, parking brake released, and off we go. So the airport, by the way, is Essen-Mülheim, a great freeware from Barometrics. Used to be available only via their website, but is now available through flightsim.to as well. It's the airport where I've done my training, so it is one that I'm well familiar with and one that I really like going back to all the time. And let's be honest over here, for freeware, this is looking really, really good. So a quick word on the readability of the G3X gauges down there. This currently is the default zoom setting on my computer, 50%. And in the video the gauges may appear really small, but I can tell you that much, that in the real world right now, I would say these screens are about as big as my hand. In the real world there are 10-inch screens, so just about a bit bigger than a typical iPad is, and they really do have all the information you need. In terms of readability itself, the readability is rather good on here, so I am definitely not going to complain. However, in order to make it a little bit easier for those of you who are watching the video on a mobile, which surprisingly 20% of people do according to YouTube statistics, 20% of you are watching these things on their mobile phones, where I'm always thinking like, how can you read the displays on that? But nonetheless, let's accommodate you guys a little bit better, so we just go back into the options, camera settings, and in here we can change the permanent zoom. So let's do like 60% over here. And this should hopefully make the displays a little bit easier readable. Alright then, park brake set. I honestly got no idea of the actual run-up procedure in this airplane, so we'll just spool up a little bit, switch around the magnetos just to see if we can actually observe a drop. So let's just give it a small moment to stabilize here. Here we go. Okay, right magneto, we definitely observe a drop. Both left magneto, we can observe a drop. Excellent. Alright, so landing light coming on, backup battery. I do suppose we just turn that on for the flight. As mentioned, would be nice if we had a manual available. Unfortunately, we don't. So flaps into the first position, and that should basically be it. Okay, so back to the split screen. Transponder onto Alt. And we can start the timer as well. Okay then. Brake released, line up, clear on the approach, clear on the right hand side. Right, just a quick last thing for us to do here. Trim roughly in neutral, I would say. That should look good. Alright, cool. Start the timing, and off we go. Take off. Power set. Speed live. Rotate. Love it. 100 and a bit meters ground roll. Okay, gear up. Climbing at 70 knots looks good. Now watch the rate of climb there. Almost 2,000 feet a minute. And flaps up. Let's see that from the outside. Beautifully climbing airplane, just look at that. Right, so back to the inside. 1,400 foot is our pattern altitude. And now we can start our right hand turn. What's interesting to note there is the color markings on the speed indicators, which are like completely different. We've got 90 knots on the 90 knots on the primary speed indicator, but on the standby, which is in kilometers an hour, that's more like, the yellow marking starts at more like 210 kilometers an hour, which is about 115 knots, so there seems to be a slight mismatch there. I do suppose that's just because of the standard beta. Okay then, let's pull off a little bit of power. Something like 22 inches, since we really only do a very short flight. Okay, so I told you on the ground already that we are going to explore our display options a little bit more while we're in flight. So let's try the Direct 2 page. So Direct 2, Echo Delta, Lima Delta. We do have nearest airports available as well. However, the flight plan key right now is not available. That's just as a basic here. Alright, so then let's just go direct to the next target, which is Dienstlaken. You can already see trip time about 6 minutes to get there, 11 nautical miles. And here we go. Okay, cool. So this is pretty much how you handle those Avionics. Now, unfortunately, I would expect with the heading knob being the inner one, if I push that in, the heading should synchronize, but when I'm clicking there, literally nothing happens, so we might have to synchronize the heading block by turning it all the time, which would be a little bit, well, strange, I suppose, is the right word for that. At least that is not what I would expect from Garmin. Alright, apart from that, something else that's interesting to note there, if you do want to do some precise flying, have a look at that vertical speed indicator here, giving you your vertical speed as soon as it's more than 100 feet a minute, literally in steps of 5 feet a minute. If you're able to fly that precise, then congratulations. Certainly I am not. That's just something worth noting here. Right. Oh, that looks strange. Alright. Back to the normal point of view then. Oh, lovely. Ignore. Thank you. I don't know. Ever since Sim Update 15 came around, I'm getting those, bandwidth warning for photogrammetry here. Not really sure what's causing them, because as you can see, my internet connection is perfectly capable of streaming photogrammetry data. But, yeah. Alright, overflying the Central, one of the biggest shopping centers in the area. The entire thing down there is one big shopping center, as you can see. Okay, so getting over to Dienstlaken then, we are going to do a quick touch and go over there, so that we can familiarize ourselves a little bit with the handling of the airplane. Then we're going to go over to Düsseldorf for a low approach, and thereafter we'll fly back to Essen, so that in the end we'll have a nice little 20 or so minute flight done. Okay, so we're looking for that little hill that we can see in front of us here, then thereafter we'll find a couple of lakes, and that is where we're going to find the airfield as well. So, target altitude down to 1200, that's going to be Patron altitude, and we'll enter directly into the base lag for a touch and go on runway 26. It's pretty much wind calm today, so nothing to worry about in these terms. Okay, so my general first impression of flying with the G3X over here is that they did simulate a lot of options. Now, the only one that I'm kind of wondering about is if we can get the flight plan to show over here. So, just go here, inside window. I would expect flight plan to be in here. Maybe if we scroll down? No. What does it look like if we just go to nearest airports? And which other options do we have here? Wind vector, yes, I do want that. HSI orientation on the heading. Looks good. Right side knob. Okay, doesn't really matter. Okay, well, we are just gonna stick with that stuff. Right, nearest airport, maybe also a good thing to have on the lower side over there. Right then, that's our lakes coming up directly in front of us over there, and then the airport is located just over there. Okay, so a little touch and go, because Dienstlaken has a pretty long runway at 1,500 meters. For an airplane that needs 300 meters for a landing, I do suppose that is pretty good. Okay, so let's start reducing our speed a little bit. We don't want to go speeding into the traffic pattern here. There any stickers with the maximum flap speeds? I mean, I suppose there need to be. What do we have here? Never to exceed 165, cruise 121, maneuvering 88, max speed with gear down 81, max speed with flaps down 65. Okay, yeah, that's just literally the maximum flap speed, but for the highest flap setting. Okay, well, I'll tell you what, let's just go to idle then. Rather hard to see at the front of this airplane, really, but oh, there. This is what we are aiming for our traffic pattern. We cross that one in 1200, then start our descent, then normally we'll end up on a pretty nice profile. One of the specialties of Dienstlaken Airport here is that they do have a displaced threshold for single-engine aircraft, and we gotta use that displaced threshold. So if you see me coming in like really high and landing really far in, then that is the reason why. We're actually aiming for a displaced threshold, which is like probably 400, 500 meters down the runway, so we still got a kilometer of runway, which is plenty for what we want to do, but which is certainly worth keeping in mind. Alright, excellent. So then gear down, first stage of flaps, second stage, third. Alright, and the speed is coming down. Full flaps. $50 knots does seem like a good approach speed here. Unfortunately, as mentioned, no real documentation or anything. So the displaced touchdown point that we're looking for is located roughly over here, in front of that third taxiway down there. They did this for noise abatement reasons, because we are flying over a farm somewhere over here, over that one. They don't like us to make noise over the farmer's house. So it looks like it flies fine at 45 knots as well. Normally there should be a couple of markers next to the runway that we should be able to see in order to judge our approach and see the displaced threshold, but looks like they don't have them over here in the scenery. Oh, that's gotta be fine then. Pull the power. And we're down. Right, flaps back into the first notch. Let's add some power. Right, rotate. Positive climb, tap the brakes, and gear up. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is to try direct to an off-airport, to an off-flight plan feature, which is going to be a reporting point of Düsseldorf, where we're going to enter the control zone, do a quick low approach, and then we're going to go back to Essen-Mülheim to complete our first flight experience with the G3X. First impression, by the way, of flying the VL3, you might have seen that I've literally just flown it for a couple minutes prior to this one, and that's been, well, literally a traffic pattern, I believe. First experience with that airplane here, it's a really, really nice one. Well, in terms of performance, that is. In terms of simulation, of course, it is a default aircraft. Always got to keep that in mind, but it gets us where we want to go. So 2,000 feet is the target altitude, by the way. I just couldn't really set my altitude back here because I need a hand on my control stick. But here we go. Right, 2,000 feet, pull off a little bit of power, but not too much, because we do want to cover a little bit of distance here. Alright, so we are looking at flying roughly into this direction. Exactly on our 12 o'clock you can see a couple of industrial buildings, and that is basically what we're aiming for, because close to that you will find the reporting point for Düsseldorf. Now the thing that I want to do, however, is to quickly trim this out. And here we are, more or less. Being slightly nose down still. Let's add a bit pitch up trim. Okay, so direct 2, and now we're looking for a waypoint that is not on the flight plan. And if we have a look at the chart over here, you can see we can basically drag this around. then basically over here somewhere should be the reporting point, but looks like the reporting point is not really in our database. Then let's just take that waypoint over here, Gapnu, and we're gonna go direct there. So direct to Gapnu, enter, activate. So now we're flying off flight plan. Let's see what the thing has done out of that. So now we just got this without any additional info. If you now go to the flight plan page, okay, our flight plan is gone. Interesting to know. Not exactly how the Garmin units that I know work, but I wouldn't be surprised if this one works a little bit different. Well, time to get a GNS 430 in here to let that do the navigation then, and feed the data to the G3X. But okay, as you can see, if the flight plan can simply disappear like that, that is kind of an indication that this is really not an IFR navigation suit. Alright, so fuel, let's change that over to the left tank. The fuel pump is still on, and here we go, left tank. Okay, so let me just... Oopsie, didn't mean to do that. So it's a touch unit. As you can see, you can easily change between all the different pages. So flight plan at waypoint. After this we want to go Düsseldorf. And then we want to go back towards Gapnu. And finally we want to go back towards Essen-Mülheim. Now this is an area that I can completely navigate just by looking outside the window, but we do want to investigate our avionics, do we? Right, so fly a little bit back into that direction over here. What we can see in the front then is we got a couple industrial buildings there, and over here is the harbor of Duisburg, and just over there we can find a railway bridge. That bridge is basically the reporting point. So you can see that's kind of close to Gapnu, even though the reporting point obviously is called a little bit different, but we do get the general idea here. So this is where we are going to fly towards. Now, from there on, we are then going to enter the control zone. We can already see the airport of Düsseldorf in the back over there. We're going to do a low approach, then leave via November again, which we are flying towards right now. And then we'll fly back to Essen-Mülheim for a full stop landing. I do believe in terms of the VFR navigation capabilities of the G3X, with that we are pretty much showing what it could do. As you can see, it's not a full-fledged device here. Not a completely fully fetched device. At least not like the G1000 or so. This is, after all, a VFR navigation suit. This is clearly meant for VFR flying as well. Even though this airplane is meant for VFR flying as well, and I do find it pretty hard to actually be able to see something in the front. But that bridge over there, that is what we're looking for. The second bridge. Okay, so now at this moment I would normally demonstrate the lean assist, but this airplane just doesn't have one. Or rather, let's have a look what it actually shows us on the engine page there. So, engine, temperatures, fuel, electrical, go over to the fuel calculation, well, endurance an hour and 12, 46% power. That really only 46%. Let me add full power. Okay, interesting, that now tells me 50%. No comment on that. Well, in any case, that, just a bit of that theory. Now, what I do find rather shocking, if we look at that, fuel remaining is now 60 pounds, but look at that, we've already used 10 pounds of fuel, so we literally don't have that much in this little airplane. Perhaps something to keep in mind when you are gonna fly this yourself in the future. Traffic display. I just want to dial that up to 12 miles or something the likes. And actually keep that active. Alright, so we are approaching the second bridge, the railway bridge down here. No, I didn't show you the ADI for a good reason during that maneuver. Alright, and then from here we can enter the control zone directly and fly towards the airport, which you can undoubtedly see on our 11 o'clock now. And here we go. So directly to the airport, descending down to 1,000 feet. Let's make it 1,200 for the Patron. The airport itself is located at like 150. Gonna keep the power on because it is a very smooth day, so if we accelerate a little bit into the amber band, that is completely fine, as long as we don't do abrupt control movements. The TCAS is showing clear, that's very good. And I'm gonna keep that TCAS display because we do have a little nav map still on the primary flight display, as you'll remember. And then we can just as well use the enhanced situational awareness from the TCAS on the right hand side. Okay, so we are slowly approaching our target altitude. Let's do a very slow level off here. So it's strange to see that we've got like -2 degrees pitch in order to maintain altitude here. At least once it's stabilized, we do. Right, so the airport is at our 12 o'clock, and as soon as we're past the little villages we can see on the left side there, we are then going to fly into a quick base, runway 23 left for a low approach, and thereafter we are going to fly back out via reporting point November. Now the only thing that you might have seen that we are lacking in this unit right now is actual VFR navigation charts. Now, I do hope that that is something where after the release, maybe Navigraph can hop into, where Navigraph might hopefully be able to add theirs to the unit in a similar way that they added the Navigraph charts to the G1000 and stuff like that. I do like to use my VFR maps when flying VFR, even with the, let's call it bigger Garmin units like the G1000, so would definitely be nice to have it in here as well. Well, warning, connection lost. Please ensure you have an active internet connection and check the forum for additional regulations. System will attempt to reconnect regularly. Well, let's just hope that it really will. So these kind of things always seem to happen around when they are releasing updates. Successfully connected, thank you. I really don't know where that instability comes from, but as long as it reconnects, it's just an annoying message, and that's it. Alright then, that's our runway, and let's start a quick descent. We have avoided overflying over these populated areas down there. Noise abatement obviously is our greatest concern, always is. Or so we want to make the public think. Alright then, gain a little speed. And off we go for our low approach. So that 30-degree bank turn worked rather nicely, didn't it? 250 kilometers an hour. Okay, setting full thrust. Because we want to make it fun after all. Now the big challenge is how low can you go without touching the runway. Let's see that from the outside. Oh yeah, that is quite alright. Let's just make sure we don't scrape our propeller on the runway. Remember, our landing gear is not deployed. But we are below the mast over here. That's awesome already. This is of course the kind of maneuver that the Aviation Authority does not want to see when you do low approach. There is a widespread debate in general aviation whether you are actually allowed to go that low on low approach, or whether you need to maintain the 500 feet minimum safe altitude, because you're technically not coming in for a landing. Alright, and out we go. 20 degrees pitch, pulling out, love it. Alright, so that's Düsseldorf Airport. I'm climbing back towards 2,000 feet, and from there we are going to make our way back to Essen-Mülheim. And that is going to complete our short tour of the Ruhr area with the Garmin G3X Avionics. So let's give me some proper rate of climb here. You can see the best rate of climb speed VY marked on the speed tape, just down there. So let's fly just that. And just look at the numbers here. We are more or less maintaining that speed now, and we're doing roughly 1,700 feet a minute. Really nice. 2,500 is maximum that we're allowed to do here in the control zone, so I'm going to keep it at 2,000. And that's going to be good. Okay, very cool. So, that much about our little low approach in Düsseldorf. Really nice how this aircraft flies. Quick look down at the fuel quantity gauge on the lower left of the right hand display, or you have it on the primary flight display as well. And we are more or less equal now between the left and the right tank. The left has a tiny bit more. Wait a moment. Let me show you that in big. Oopsie. Yeah, engine page. I didn't mean to bring that up. Back. It's a touch display after all. You can see whenever you touch certain areas here, it always brings you into the respective pages. Okay, anyway, fuel tiny bit more on the left side, so we're going to keep flying on the left-hand tank for the way back, and then we'll switch to the right tank for our landing. Alright, so powering back 25 inches. Flaps are up, gear is up, and that's about it. Perfect. Just suppose we could turn the fuel pump off. And perhaps the landing light as well. Alright, so again, the two bridges on our 11:30 o'clock. Here we go, now flying directly towards them. By the way, I do just have to point out how awesome the scenery over here really looks. This is all photogrammetry now, especially with the city update. Even the city of Düsseldorf in the back there is all photogrammetry, and that just looks really, really beautiful. Microsoft did an awesome job making this sim look almost exactly like in the real life. You look at all the containers close to that little harbor down there. The crane loading the ships. That's really good job. And we always have to keep in mind that is basically the default simulator. That is, what we're flying right now is without any payware add-ons. Or freeware add-ons even. This is just completely the default simulator. And honestly, how awesome does that look? Really, really excellent if you ask me. I'm really impressed by that sim. Alrighty, so crossing over at the Rhine. Another harbour on the other hand side here, then on the right side, in the direction of flight on the right side, that is. We'll have the harbour of Düsseldorf again in a moment. And if we just go ahead and follow the river. So let's just see where it is. Okay, there it is, immediately in front of us. And we have passed beam the bridges. The one on the left there, that's the one that marks the reporting point. By the way, this is a pretty high chimney. When you're flying night VFR on this area, and you see that red light blinking up there, you're like, man, this is high. Especially if you take into account we're in 1,500 feet right now. Alright, so we are going to follow the river over here. That is going to keep us safely outside the control zone of Düsseldorf. And again, just look at that amazing level of detail that we got in the area here. That's just completely, completely beautiful. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . Alright, awesome. So, trimming it out, we can stay down low here already because we will be flying below the Class Charlie airspace located in 1,500 feet on the approach to Essen. So if we just maintain the 1,400 that we got right now, that is going to be rather good. So let me set the target down here, 1,400. The heading buck I will already select to the runway heading over in Essen, which is going to be roughly 240. Like that. Alright, awesome. So we are following the Rhein-Herne-Kanal over here until we reach the Zentrum Oberhausen again, and then we're going to make it a right-hand turn over to Essen-Mülheim. There will be some 4 big buildings. You can already see them on the right-hand side there. I mean, I just suppose we could just take the shortcut and go directly there as well. As long as we stay north of the river over here, we are safe outsidely. Outsidely? Is that a word? Probably not. We're safe outside the control zone of Düsseldorf. Then you've got those 4 large buildings over there, which basically mark a nice area entering the traffic pattern in Essen. So, maintaining 1,400. It's interesting, 1,400 is the pattern altitude over in Essen, and at 1,500 the controlled airspace starts already. So, that's really like not a lot of room for error. Especially when you consider that a general aviation pilot is normally expected to be able to maintain his altitude down to 150-foot accuracy. But well. Okay, awesome. So the 4 buildings are coming up straight in front of us. And then we should be able to see the airport somewhere. What I can see already down there is the blimp. Alright, and here's the Ruhrtal Bridge. Okay, so the airport is located immediately in front of us. You could just see the green beacon. Yeah, here's the beacon from the tower. So that's exactly what we're looking for. Right then, I'm going to start reducing my speed a little bit, and as we're entering the pattern area, fuel pump landing light coming on. Okay, so speed is coming back nicely, and then we can enter the traffic pattern in a moment. We're basically fly it alongside the left-hand side of that field on our left there, and then towards the end of that field we're going to find a water tower. And that is basically where the traffic pattern is going to pass over. It's really nice how all of that has been simulated by Christian Barr, the gentleman who did the freeway scenery for the airport. It's really awesome. Really, really awesome. Alright, excellent. So basically here we are. You can make out the water tower if you know what to look for. It's basically that little thing that just vanished underneath our plane. So over there on the left, that little thing at the end of the field. That's where the traffic pattern goes over. Alright, and then over there is our airfield. This one over here it is. Alright, cool. Reducing speed a little bit further. Then looking to fly heading of roughly 060 onto the downwind. And once the speed starts coming down, we're going to start extend the landing gear and the flaps and come in for landing. But man, this thing's got power. Barely wants to lose the speed. Do we really have to go all the way to idle? Looks like it. Right, that's our airfield over there. It's always easy to spot because of that large green hangar of the blimp. Right, so first flaps, gear down. Second stage of flaps. That's what we're going to use for the initial approach. We don't want to get too slow after all. So we fly the pattern over that forested area in the city over here. Speed about 60 and a bit is good. And then we turn base prior to reaching the highway in front of us. So basically now. If you wonder why I said turn base, well, that's basically because the airport in Essen over here has a slightly amended pattern where you do that little where you do that little lag that's not really a base, not really a final, like so, to stay away from those houses over here, because that's a rather rich part over there, and you basically stay on the right hand side of the highway, like so. Right, so landing checks, flaps down, gear down, and lights on. Landing checks complete. So we are flying a single engine piston aircraft. That means the puppy is not really applicable to us. So if you just stay a little bit higher than the puppy, then that is normally going to be a good thing, because in case an engine goes out, you do have a little bit longer glide range. The puppy really only gets relevant when you start flying two-engined aircraft over here, or when you are doing commercial aviation, because they do regularly have commercial aviation here as well. Jets are not allowed at the airport, but turboprops certainly are. So things like an ATR might very well be seen over here. Alright then, pull the power. See, that's what I meant with the glide range. Once the power is off, the thing really just goes down. Dang, touchdown slightly before the displaced threshold. So technically an off-airfield landing. But I'm happy to accept that. And just look at our speed there. I didn't look at the speed indicator while we touched down, but you guys have probably seen it. Were we at like 35, 40 knots during touchdown? That's what I really like about this plane. It flies so incredibly fast, but you can approach so slow. I do believe it takes about 150 meters for takeoff and 300 meters for landing, which is fairly nice. Obviously, that is if you approach at an appropriate speed. Like if you approach this with 70 knots or so, apart from blowing the flaps off your plane, you are really going to float for eternity. Okay, vacating the runway, flaps are going up, and the landing lights coming off, fuel pumps coming off. We did land on the left tank, but yeah, okay, just slightly lower. Let's switch over to the right, however. Okay, and then we just gotta have a look at the transponder. And we can switch that to standby already. They don't have ground radar here anyway. I mean, they don't even have air traffic control here. Just an information. Called radio now. No longer info, but you guys get where I'm going with that. Alright, so we're gonna park straight here in the grass next to the Katana. Try not to kill any of those lights, and here we go. Alright, and here we are. So, park and brake is set, the transponder are off, avionics are coming off, backup battery going off. Alright, and since we don't have a mixture that we could use to kill the engine, we gotta use the switch. And here we go. Strobe light off, master off, and that's it. Welcome back to Essen. And fuel off. So I do hope that you enjoyed the little tour of the Ruhr area, together with seeing our brand new G3X in action. Now, as you can see, the G3X comes with quite a couple of the features of the actual airplane, which is pretty cool, but there are a couple of them not yet implemented. which I do hope that are going to be added, but overall that's a really good first impression of this important piece of avionics. Now, what I'm surely hoping for with this avionic here is that we will see it being converted to all those add-on aircraft that are using the G3X, because I'm honest with you, I'm not a great fan of those add-ons that are using the G3X avionics with the previous sim update 14 and lower G3X, because it's just easy for the developers to implement that without putting much effort in it, but the avionics basically sucked. And right now with the updated G3X from sim update 15, they're actually going to be pretty good, I tend to say. So it's going to be interesting to see that. I do hope that they will get ported into all our favorite small aircraft very quickly. But with that, all I can say is they do look like a promising unit. And my first general impression with sim update 15, except for the couple of disconnects from the servers that we had, where it claimed that our bandwidth was too low, or where it just lost the connection overall, except for those connection issues which do seem to happen every now and then when Microsoft is doing updates. Except for those, it seems like sim update 15 beta is actually running rather stable. So as always, if you are keen to join the beta, then do keep in mind that joining it is kinda a one-way trip, because in many cases when you return to the standard installation, then you might need to reinstall your entire flight simulator. But there is some very good guidance on that available on the Microsoft forums, so do go on that in order to find some more information if you're interested to join the sim update 15 beta. Now, this is all I can say for now. This was a pretty enjoyable flight. The new avionics are looking promising, even though there is still a little bit of stuff missing, especially when you go into the menu and there is so much stuff grayed out. Like a VNAV would certainly be appreciated in there. A little bit of stuff like that to make the average flight simmer's life much easier. Alright, that's gonna be it for today's video, guys. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, do let me know in the comments below. Be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you are up for more. And with that, I would like to say thank you very much for joining. And if you really love what I'm doing here, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you for watching, and see you all again on the next one.